roll on in for the first I Want to Know for this month as well. Hello, sweet pie. Hey, Nicole says hello. So good to see you. I know we've been asking questions all this afternoon, which is really, really cool. So good to see you as well. If there's anyone else that wants to chime on in and say hello, please let me know too. Now, I will start by saying I had a very interesting encounter in my house, which I very, very, very rarely do. I was researching and double checking a couple of technical things, and I actually had something, it sounded like it was thrown. So I'm not really sure. That this stuff never happens in my house. I went around and had a look everywhere. I mean, everywhere. So I looked around the shelving, the floor, see if anything fell on anything, but it fell on a hard surface. So I'm still unsure of what that was. Maybe it's only just kind of happened once. So I'm kind of throwing it off as a bit of a, oh, well, you never know. But it was just a very random thing. The husband is out at the moment. So I kind of like, okay, that's the only time it's ever going to happen is when he's not here. So yeah, interesting to say the least. So a little bit more. Hello, Gareth. So much for following one's adventures across Eastern Europe recently. So for anyone who's watching the replay as well, I ventured out to Eastern Europe and had an amazing time. It was all for a documentary being done by Moonlight Media. So it was very well wind. It was non-stop and it was amazing. So I will let you know details more of when that will actually be released as well. So wait a little bit longer. I hope everybody is well too. Everyone's having a good time and life is well. I mean, we've had some great weather here in Sydney too recently. Great autumn weather. I think it's fall there in the States as well. Hey, Karina, how are you? Sorry, Karina Rob. Hope you are well. It's good to see you. Oh, Blair, yay, how are you, mate? Okay, so let's get started, guys. This is all about private cases, but the information I'm going to be able to give you guys for tonight, or some tips and ideas and things you can use, is stuff you can actually use in everyday life, or stuff if you interview people at work and things like that. You probably already know a little bit about this anyway, but it's always good to have a bit more information, and maybe there might be something out of today that you might actually be able to take away with you. So firstly, I will start off with the first thing. If you are going to be looking at doing interviewing, is if you don't already have it, try and see if you can have a confidentiality agreement with the person and the people that you're interviewing. So if you don't have one in place, the internet's a beautiful thing. You can actually research quite a few of them. I type in confidentiality agreement for interviewing people, and that just gives you a bit of confidence and respect and protection, as well as the people that you're interviewing. So it obviously helps them feel a lot better, a lot safer, but also that everyone's across the board. And some, as we know, with people who deal with private or residential cases, sometimes people are they're happy if it's a video or a photo of something that might be a little bit interesting, and some are absolutely don't want anything publicly in any way. So you have, obviously, as investigators, we need to respect that, and to also keep in mind. So if you don't have one in place, it's really, really easy to get one put together, and make sure it's you and the people in your team and the client signs it as well. So everybody is across the board and there's no ugly moments in the future. How do you deal with the mental state of it? Tips. Oh, yes. I'll actually get along to that, Karina. It's a really, really good question. So Karina's actually asked whether or not, how do you deal with the mental side of it? If there are any tips, are welcome. So I will actually go into that a little bit later. A couple of ideas in how to kind of ascertain whether or not that's going to lean towards that particular area. And so I know it sounds really, really sort of blasé, but I will actually get into that, I promise. If you're interviewing somebody, it's really good to have two people doing the interview. The reason being is that naturally, as humans, we're going to write stuff down, and as we're writing stuff down, if we're listening, when we're writing down, we're not actually concentrating at that very moment on what that person is saying. So if you are writing down, you might actually be missing out on some valuable information because you're trying to make sure you've got what you've written down right. If you've got two people, then you've actually got a better chance of actually capturing more information. So that's another tip as well. I've done that in the past and it's worked really well. It's also good having another person's perspective. In fact, I've actually had it where there's been three of us writing notes down, and it's been a really good perspective to try and get when it comes to analysing the information that the person's given afterwards as well. Another step that could be a bit better than that is actually if you can voice record it. So if you've got we've all got voice recorders, or most of us do. If you're able to ask permission and actually have that signed off as well. I know that sounds a bit anal, but the reason being is because you want to make sure everything's across the board, and you want to also make sure that they know where they stand with it as well. So if you've got an audible recording and you're reviewing it, obviously you're not going to be publishing it, but they're not upset at the fact that they've been taken advantage of and they didn't know. Everybody knows because they have literally read a document and signed it. There is no way there could be any type of confusion. So really, really good if you can actually voice record the interview. Another thing as well is if you can actually maybe even look at going even one step further, is actually video it. Now, I've found maybe about 30% of cases I've dealt with where people have actually been open to that for obvious reasons. Not everybody feels comfortable about being in front of a camera, let alone being in front of a camera and actually divulging the experiences they've had, whether it's been paranormal or not. So I've found that has been really, really handy, because if not all your team can be there when you're reviewing it later, body language can give more information than a verbal answer can ever do so. So, and it's also good to have that on record later on as well, particularly after an investigation. Really, really interesting information you can come up with that as well. Now, it may sound a bit strange, but so another tip as well, ask the same question different times. So it's not like you ask, so how did you feel? So how did you feel? So how did you feel? Yep, I'm done. It's not like that. It's not like in a minute. But it's actually, for me, that as a minimum, there's an email questioning, then there's a phone interview, and then there's actually a site visit, and then maybe there actually will be an investigation, depending. Very rarely does it get to that particular stage. So asking the same question or same style or same kinds of questions in each of those times, you'll get a better indication whether or not somebody is telling you the truth. And because the truth is easier to remember more than lies. And that's a big, big thing. So, Corinne, that's the first thing. If you may already know that anyway, is that if somebody's story starts to change a little bit, they're hiding something. And it could be because they may, it could be all sorts of reasons, but that's one thing, that's one clue. And there's a system I've got in place, and I might as well let you guys know. What I do is I think I've got 37 core questions that I ask somebody in a full interview. So I've gone through everything. These are the questions. But what I've done with that list is that I've actually made a cut down version for a phone interview. So I've got 10 core questions, and the ones that I know that are going to be deal breakers. But I've numbered them the same as I have in my interview questions. So say, for instance, question 3 can be about, have you looked at having somebody spiritually cleanse your home? Question 5 could be, is there any power lines overhanging from your house? And those two, so question 3 and question 5, I will take and put them into my phone interview, and I still name them 3 and 5. So when it comes to comparing the information that person has given you, you've actually got a direct correlation between, and you can actually see whether or not their story is changing. Sometimes descriptions may be a little bit different. You've got to allow for that. But if there's a change of information, you can start to see a pattern going, hang on a second, they said that it was to the left, but, next time I spoke to them, they said it was to the right, and then they said it didn't happen at all. So you can actually start to see a bit of a pattern. Excuse me. So that's one thing. That's a system I use. I've been using it for years. But as me, I'm very visual. I like they work or not. So that could be something that could also help as well to verify the information, because lies are harder to remember and they often don't have a lot of detail. So if someone's withholding information they don't want you to know for whatever reason, it could be anything. It could be mental health stuff. It could be substance abuse. It could be for attention. No, I love those ghost shows, but I have something in my home, and they're interesting cases to also approach as well, because you have to be very, very careful that you're not being used as an Australian in where we are, live paranormal investigation for someone's entertainment when there's actually nothing going on. So that kind of thing kind of helps weed it out a little bit and gives you a bit of an idea whether or not someone might be holding something back for whatever reason at that time. Also, ask open-ended questions. So things like, so if someone says, I saw this shadow person and they went around the corner. Okay, how did you feel? So you're not saying, so how did you feel when you saw that shadow person? Did it really freak you out? Like, you're not front loading that person. And this can be a bit of a lot of practice, actually, because as investigators, we feel for people when we're interviewing them, and you're going to want to be able to help them out. So I've over the years had to really pull back a bit and be really kind of, okay, so what happened next? Or what happened when what happened when you went upstairs? Oh, and blah, blah, blah. So you're trying not to lead them on. And sometimes it can be difficult because we know sometimes how potential paranormal phenomena can work. So if someone's having difficulty trying to explain it, I had to fight with this so many times where you can't actually tell them, so was it like black and it went all fuzzy and it did this and it did, like, from experiences and things that I've seen and read and heard. So yeah, pull back from that and be as objective as possible. And again, that's a skill I'm still learning. I'm not 100%, but I'm a lot better at it as well. So after Cyclone Debbie, there has been more talk about strange. Oh, really? So, wow. Okay. So David's had some interesting phenomena regarding strange occurrences. I'd love to hear about that, mate. That sounds really awesome, by the way. I'm really intrigued because weather conditions, paranormal phenomena, I think that might be another Facebook Live. I want to know. So that's another thing to keep in mind too. Now, a couple of resources. I actually use I have read this book a few times, and it was actually referred to me by Ben Hansen, believe it or not. And he has, it's called Never Be Lied to Again. And it's by an author called David Lieberman. And it's a really great book. It's really, really practical. I've got it I downloaded it off Kindle, I think it was. So I've got it online. But yeah, really, really great book. Very good about body language. Very good about seeing whether or not someone's withholding information. And again, like with Karina, sometimes you're not sure what's going on, and there's some indicators in there to see whether or not someone's actually revealing all the truth, or there's something that's not quite right that's being held from you for whatever reason. That's a really good starting point, is that particular book. So it's called Never Be Lied to Again, and it's by David Lieberman. Now, another really cool tool that I have, which is probably about 5 times more expensive than that. So this is something I was lucky enough to obtain through work a couple of years ago. It's called Live Scribe, and it's been a godsend when it comes to interviews and interviewing people. Reason being is that it looks like something from Star Trek, but what it is where is it? My goodness, where did I put the pen? I've even taken the pen out. My gosh, where have I put it? I've even taken it out. I've taken it out and I'm not even sure. But this is what the actual book looks like. So the book looks like this. It's actually got specific paper that's got dots in it. So I won't go through the pages because it's actually really highly sensitive client information. So I'll whiz through those. So it doesn't, you probably can't tell, and that's completely fine there. But what it is, it's got tiny, fine little dots. And it's when there's a microphone actually in the pen itself. And I'm really bummed because I was only looking at it the other day. There's a microphone in the actual pen itself. Now, what happens is you switch it on and it records. And as you're writing, it will record what is said at the time that you are writing. So if you write, say, for instance, someone's divulging the fact that they've had the couch was moved while they were sitting on it. You go, couch was moved while in the lounge room, as the person is saying it. So when you get back, you can actually tap on those words with the pen and it will play back at that exact point in time when you wrote that. And that can be really, really handy when you're actually looking at all the facts and stuff like that. So really, really cool little device. You can get them at Officeworks. They are about 250 Australian dollars, which is a little bit eye-watering. For anyone else around the world, that's probably about so 250 is probably like 200 US, and probably about, where are we, 250? So you probably look at about 180 pounds roughly. So it is an expensive device. They have different ones as well. LiveScribe isn't the only one, but that's one thing that I found that has been really, really helpful when I've been actually doing interviews. And again, I was lucky to get that from my actual work, my job. So yes, there's a couple of tips there. Hopefully that was able to help out with you guys. Really cool, David. Hopefully, Karina, that's helped give you a little bit of an idea. I am looking actually doing a Facebook Live more on the actual mental health side of it as well, and signs and symptoms to look out for. So if you are really interested in that, please let me know as well. So again, if you're interested in any more about all sorts of different topics, head over to accessparanormal.com/learning. Thank you so much for joining, guys, and take care.